We're live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are all doing well on this Wednesday afternoon. My name is Margaret Burke, and I will be introducing our topic very briefly today, which is exploring online education. And we have a lot of great things ready for today's session. First, I will explain what Education USA is and what our services include. And then we will have a brief explanation by my colleague about online learning platforms and exploring online education. And then we will have a panel of two young women who have recently been taking online courses from US universities and colleges. And then at the very end, we will open the floor to questions. So if you have questions during this webinar and you are joining us on Zoom, please send your questions to Q&A Jackson Cruz. If you are joining us on Facebook Live, you can simply comment the questions, comment your question, and one of our colleagues will send the question to us so that we ask it at the very end. So let's get started. First, Education USA, we are a program that is funded by the U.S. Department of State, which in other words is the U.S. government, and more specifically the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. So we are an educational advising program that helps international students around the world apply to U.S. universities and colleges. It could be for an associate's degree, bachelor's, master's, PhD, intensive English program. And we are the official source of information on U.S. higher education. So we have the most up-to-date and accurate information. If things are changing, we know about those changes. And all of our basic educational advising services are completely free. So we always like to start our webinars by going over some frequently asked questions that we commonly get in our different centers around the world. For example, I'm located in Costa Rica, and later you'll hear from my colleague in Guatemala. So we hope that you're joining us from many different countries today and that you reach out to the Education USA advisor in your country, right? The first commonly asked or frequently asked question that we get is if Education USA is a scholarship program. We are not a scholarship program, nor can we finance your studies. We are an educational advising program. So we help you through all the steps of applying, and we can explain the different types of financial aid that exist at the different types of universities. But we, Education USA, cannot pay for you to study in the United States. So we can guide you towards opportunities to fund your studies, but we ourselves cannot fund them. Another question we often get is if we have opportunities to improve your English. If you are interested in starting directly in an academic program, like an associate's or a bachelor's, PhD, master's, you should already have an advanced level of English because all of your classes and homework and assignments will be done in English, and you will be required to take an English proficiency test as one of the requirements when you apply, right? However, it is important to keep in mind that in certain U.S. universities and colleges, they offer intensive English programs where you can go and immerse yourself in U.S. culture and live there near the university or sometimes on the university campus. But instead of taking a biology or a math class, you're taking intensive English courses, right? So that is an option at certain U.S. universities and colleges, and they all have varying prices. Another question we often get is if we can help you find a short-term study abroad program, like a cultural exchange for 2 weeks. We do not offer those types of short-term cultural exchanges, but we focus on the services offered by U.S. universities and colleges. So that would be the academic programs I mentioned, right? So associates, bachelor's, master's, PhD. We also can help you if you're looking to obtain a certificate or a short-term program. But we do not have specific programs where you can go, for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or anything like that. About internships abroad, we cannot offer you an internship directly from your country to go perform the internship in the United States. But if you study in the United States on an F1 visa, which is a student visa, you have the opportunity to apply for an extension at the end of your degree, which is called an OPT, optional practical training. The OPT is a legal extension of the F1 student visa to work in the United States in the area of study that you just acquired, right? So if you get a bachelor's in engineering, you could get a job at a nearby engineering company and work for them legally with the OPT program. So that's a huge advantage of studying in the United States. And last but not least, another commonly asked question we get is if we have specific agreements with universities, like if we have a list of 20 universities that we work with. And the answer is no, because we actually represent and work with all 4,700 accredited US universities and colleges in the United States. So we will work with you to help you find the best university for you in terms of your professional goals and your personal goals. We are not sending all of the students to the same university because you might want one thing and another student might want another. So we represent all 4,700 universities in the United States. After going over the questions, sometimes students are a little puzzled as to our services. So we like to go over our services. Applying to US universities and colleges can take anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So a year to a year and a half. And this is because it's a long process that we divide into 5 steps. With the first step, we're going to help you consider your different options, like today's webinar. Would you like to study online or would you like to study in person? Okay. We can help you with different search engines about how to find different university options and what you're looking for. And step 2 is where we discuss how you're going to finance your studies. Are you trying to acquire very generous scholarships? Can your parents pay for part of your education? Are you considering taking a loan, right? We discuss all of those different questions. Step 3 is probably the longest step because it's actually applying to the US universities and colleges, which includes writing essays, preparing and taking standardized exams, asking for letters of recommendation, filling out the different forms, and we can support you in all of those different steps. After you apply and get into the universities, then you have to apply for your student visa, which is different than the tourist visa, right? And we explain to you how you apply, where you need to pay, what forms you need to bring so that you have all of your documents ready to go to the interview at the consulate nearest you. And last but not least, step 5 is called pre-departure orientation, where we support students who are going to leave. We just had some a few weeks ago in Costa Rica to support all of the students who are leaving in August to start their studies. And we explained cultural differences, how to get a cell phone in the United States, what the health insurance is like. So it was a great session. And I remind all of you that all of our services in Education USA, our basic advising services, are free, okay? Now it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Maria Luisa from Education USA Guatemala, who is the mastermind behind today's webinar. So welcome, Maria Luisa.
Thank you, Mo, for those really kind words. And thank you everyone for being here. My name is Maria Luisa Garnica, and I am the Education USA advisor here in Guatemala. I'm based in Guatemala City. And today I wanted to ask you where you're joining us from. And I want to try this Menti for a second time. So if you know how to use Menti, please go ahead and share. I'll give you the code right now. They're sharing them in the chat box. And if you're on Facebook, you can also go to menti.com and input the code. Okay, the code, it will be shown on your screen in a moment. It's right here. It's 47 13 20 44. So please, I want to ask you where you're joining us from and what is the weather like where you're joining us from. So you can either, so for example, for me right now, I'm in Guatemala and it's actually quite cloudy. It looks like it's going to rain. So I will write Guatemala cloudy or cloudy Costa Rica, like somebody's sharing right there. So please tell us, are you joining us from somewhere in North America, Central America, the Caribbean, or other parts of the world? Everybody is welcome. And I know sometimes we've had people from far, far away join our sessions, and that's always very exciting. And it's always exciting to see our Central America, North America, and Caribbean represented in our sessions. Okay, so we have cloudy Costa Rica, Guatemala City, cold and cloudy wherever you're at. I'm sorry, but maybe you like cold and cloudy. Sometimes that's also nice. We got Guatemala and Costa Rica represented. Very nice. Thank you for helping out by participating. I know we're not that many people right now, But yeah, so we have rainy Central America represented, I'm sure. Tis the season. All right, so thank you for helping me out participating on the little poll for Facebook and Zoom on where are we joining from. Okay, so today, like Mo explained, I will begin with a quick overview of some online platforms that allow us to take advantage of some online courses. And then we'll move on to Paula's content that will go a little bit deeper and more deep in, will give us more detail on the different things we can consider regarding online education. And then lastly, we'll move on to a bit of a Q&A for Paula and for our student guest, yes, who I'll introduce in a moment. All right, so online education. Did you know that over 3 million people study online? That is a lot of people. And that is important in the current era that we're living, but also to understand that a lot of employers, more the stats that I found is around 61% of hiring leaders see credits earned online as equal to those earned in person. So that opens a lot of doors for people around the world. And I mean this in the sense of taking advantage of the quality education that the US provides to us international students, okay? So you can take also courses without a certification. And this means I can take, for example, I'm actually looking to take a course in Excel, the program, because I want to become better at it. And there are some MOOC camps, and we'll explain that a little bit here. And then Paula is going to go deeper on that, that can help me to learn more of this. Or I can also try to find courses that can help me with well-being and general happiness, for example, or philosophy or programming. You know, there are a lot of different options, and there's some that are completely free and some that if you want a certification, you can pay for it. So it's really useful as well to get a bit of a taste of the education system in the US. So a MOOC, we hear this often now more, now that we're more virtual, but a MOOC means a massive open online course. So this means it's open to a lot of people, right? To a large mass of people. And they're really handy for us that are in different countries than the US. Now, let's move forward to the pros and cons of online learning platforms. This is just an overview, like I said, and this is the objective of this information at this moment is to give you a bit of ideas of things that could work for you and things that may not work for you. So on the side of pros, let's start with the positive side. So you can have different types of instructors, right? There can be, you know, super PhDs to not super PhDs teaching you these courses. You can have video lectures. Oftentimes there's also transcription to the lecture that you're listening to or watching, and that can also help you with developing your English skills if that is one of your objectives. You can also have the option to do some peer review assignments if you wanted, for example, the certification on this philosophy course. You can write your essays and then a peer will review them, as well as you will get a chance to review somebody's essays. And you'll have quizzes and other kinds of testing your knowledge along the way of these courses. And like I said, you can pay for a certification if you finish the course successfully. And there's a really, really, really wide range of courses available to us. Then some of the cons of online learning platforms can be that they may be a bit of basic, right? If I'm well advanced in a subject and I want to know more, maybe I won't find challenging content in X or Y platform. But maybe if you look deeper, you can find these options. Or maybe if you're really advanced, your track is to enroll in an online master's, for example. There can be more of an opportunity for plagiarism, and this is really not conducive for a US education. So plagiarism is not accepted in any measure. So we need to be mindful of this. And there can also be some platforms and certificates that can be quite pricey. So we need to keep in mind these different details. Now, I'll do a quick overview of some platforms that I've enjoyed and that I recently relearned about. So we will begin with Coursera. Coursera is a platform that has a lot of courses. You can scan the QR code over there, or you can also go to Coursera.org. If you scan the QR code here, it should lead you to the website. Again, don't worry if you miss taking a snapshot or a scan of this information, because it will stay uploaded at in the Facebook page of Education USA Guatemala and in our YouTube channel for further reference. So Coursera is really handy. I actually did a course here on wellness and well-being, I think it was called. It was a course directed from a professor at Yale University. It was really fun, really not academic, because that was not my objective. I wanted to go deeper a little on how to be healthier physically and emotionally. And I think I can vouch for Coursera. They have a really user-friendly platform. You can install an app on your phone and it can be really useful. Okay. Then we have edX. edX is also a useful platform, and they have a lot of free resources and free courses. So again, you can scan this QR code that will take you to the page. And if that didn't work or you're not able to scan, you can go to edX.org as well and explore what is available to you. Then another one that we're going to look at is Udacity. Udacity focuses more on technical education, so things like programming and it can be a little more pricey. But if that's your field or something you want to get more savvy on, you can explore Udacity. And lastly, we have ClassCentral, which is kind of a hub for different platforms. So ClassCentral centralizes different courses, and it can be courses from Coursera, courses from edX, courses from other platforms, and you can scan them. And like I said, virtual learning just for pleasure and for credit has become a really strong component of our daily lives. And I think even if it's just for the love of learning, there are a lot of options to stay busy and to feel productive. And taking advantage of our now obligatory connection through the internet, we can use and exploit these options for our personal and academic growth. So now, after this snapshot on different platforms, I want to introduce our guests and then move on to the very meaty presentation that Paula, our first guest, has prepared for us. So Paula is a graduate student at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey in California, and an intern with the U.S. Department of State Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs in the Office of Global Education Programs. Paula holds a Bachelor in Science in Mechanical Engineering and a Master's in Teaching English to speakers of other languages. She has experience working in the aerospace, consumer electronics, and healthcare industries, and is a returned U.S. Peace Corps education volunteer and a former English language fellow. Before beginning her current master's studies in international education management, Paula taught English to learners of varied ages and levels in Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, China, and North Africa. And this was in a wide range of educational settings. She has also conducted research trainings as well, and her professional interests include intercultural communication and emerging educational technologies. Thank you, Paula, for being here. And real quickly, I'll introduce Litzy, who is going to join us for the Q&A part. Litzy is a recent graduate from Harding University. She got a BBA in International Business and a Master's in Information Systems. And she is from Guatemala, and she'll be joining us for receiving some of your questions, all right? So Paula, please take it away.
Oh, I think Okay, hi. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon or good evening. And thank you, Maria Luisa, for that great introduction and the overview of MOOCs. So I just read a statistic from Whole on IQ that estimates that out of 5 students who want to study abroad, 4 of them can't because of career or family obligations. They don't meet the academic requirements or they can't afford it. So that means there are a lot of people for whom online education is a good option. So as Maria Luisa mentioned, I'm completing my 2nd master's degree virtually without ever having set foot in my classroom. And I have always loved learning and I've taken many courses for fun, both in person and online. And you can ask me in the chat about questions. You can direct to Q&A, Jackson Cruz. And let's go to the next slide. So you'll see here, this is a map of my sort of online education journey. So my first introduction was through MOOCs. I took a course through edX in the history of global architecture from MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, while I was teaching English in Ukraine. So you see on the map here, I have some red stars. So those are places where I have studied from. And then the blue stars located in the United States are places where my schools were, okay? So my first introduction was that MOOC course, and it was great. And everything was pre-recorded. So there were lectures followed by quizzes. There was some interaction with other students. And best of all, it was free. So, and it wasn't available all at one time. It was a week by week structure. So I had something to look forward to each week. And it felt like a real class. So over the years, I've participated in various other MOOCs through Coursera and edX, some language learning, some on art, a little bit of science. I have not finished them all, but the good thing is that once you register for a course, you have access until that closes. So, and you can kind of do the course at your own pace. If you are taking the audit option, as Maria Luisa mentioned, if you want to get a certificate, you have to follow, usually you have to follow the timing for your homework assignments. So after Peace Corps in Ukraine, I went on to teach English in Thailand, China, and Morocco. And while I was in China, I decided I wanted to go back to school and get a master's degree. And 6 months later, I was teaching full-time in Morocco and pursuing my master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages through Concordia University, Chicago. So you'll see Concordia at the top on the left there. So I was unable to stay in Morocco due to family reasons, but I did finish my coursework over the next year and a half, completely online. Okay. After that, I went back to China with the English Language Fellow Program, also a US Department of State exchange program. And while I was there, I also decided that I wanted to increase my professional skills. So I signed up for a phonetics course through the San Diego State University's global campus and was able to take a course online through them for credit and help my students with pronunciation as a result. So, however, after that, rather than continue teaching, I decided to get another master's degree at Middlebury Institute in California. You'll see at the bottom there. And I intended to be on campus in person. However, COVID interrupted and all of my courses were virtual over the past year. So I will talk a little bit about that also. And I can say too that in Middlebury, there were students who were studying from overseas who weren't able to come to the US in person last year. They had to adapt to the time zones, and we'll talk about that a little bit. So this slide compares the different programs. So this looks complicated, but the main differences in the programs were whether they were asynchronous or synchronous. The type of program, okay, and whether the programs were open to all students and of course the cost. So let's talk a little bit about what the difference is between synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous basically means at the same time, so that your classes, you will be in the classroom, the virtual classroom, at the same time as your instructor and your fellow students. And you're expected to be there to be attending class. Asynchronous means that it's not at the same time, and you generally can access the course content whenever it's convenient for you. Of course, you still have deadlines for your homework and assignments, but your participation is determined by your own schedule. So my courses, the MOOCs, Concordia, and SDSU were all asynchronous and designed for the online environment. And my Middlebury courses were all synchronous, so meaning I had to be in class at a certain time every week, or certain days, certain times every week. Except I had one course that was mostly asynchronous and had a few synchronous meetings. And also I can say my SDSU course had some optional synchronous office hours with the instructor, and that was great to get that person-to-person feedback. Okay, so asynchronous and synchronous can make a difference to your learning, and depending on your particular preferences in your life, one or the other might be preferred. So we'll go to the next slide and we'll talk about asynchronous. So asynchronous learning, it might be better for you if you don't feel like you need that face-to-face, person-to-person engagement with your instructor and other students. This is good for courses that are knowledge-driven, that, you know, is sort of like the book learning. And also if you're very confident about your writing skills. Okay, so my experience has been mostly with graduate level courses, so I can't speak to like the current undergraduate courses. Maybe Litzy can share something about that. But one of the main components is that you have to be comfortable writing, and writing a lot. The speaking portion, you may have like videos to record or something, but it's mostly about writing. If you're comfortable learning across the multiple time zones, okay, so it can be challenging to have a schedule that's off by a few hours from your classmates, and really challenging if you're off by more than that. But since you're in the Western Hemisphere, I think you know, that's maybe less of an issue. So the other big consideration is other time commitments. So if you have to work, if you have family commitments, those things will impact your learning. And if you do asynchronous classes, you don't have to worry, because you can do your homework and do your work when it's convenient for you, and take care of your family business and your work as well. So let's talk about synchronous learning on the next slide. Okay, so some of us really want to have that face-to-face interaction with our instructors and fellow students. So that's one of the reasons why I chose the graduate program I did at Middlebury, because I really wanted to be in the classroom and working with my colleagues. And so that's something, you know, to think about. Also, if you want to use more of your communication skills. So synchronous learning, you'll be in a classroom, you'll likely be on Zoom, you might be in breakout rooms, speaking with other students. So you have to be confident in your ability to participate. So, and if you want to use those skills and develop your language abilities and your collaboration skills, then that is something to consider. Okay, and again, it works better if you're in a convenient time zone for you, and that you can dedicate those times in your schedule to attend class. Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so regardless of whether your classes are synchronous or asynchronous, so you need to have time management skills, because regardless of the format, your homework's due when your homework is due. And the other thing to consider for online learning, especially for a traditional sort of higher education institution, is that your willingness to share and to create that learning community makes a big difference. So it's up to you as a participant, as a learner, to share your ideas and engage with others. So that's just something to consider. And that's true also for asynchronous, because you be expected to respond to your classmates and with thoughtful, detailed answers, and it really makes the learning better for everyone. Something to remember is all of us sometimes need help with technology and platforms and making sure that the content, like we understand what the instructor wants us to do with the content. So, and that's okay to realize that, and that everyone has those challenges. So be sure that you know who to ask, where to find those resources to help you, and rely on your fellow students. And then the final thing is really to be aware of your own learning, be in charge of your own learning, and also be aware of your sort of state of being. So are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Or do you feel confident? Are you able to take care of your classwork? And when you feel like you might need some assistance, or you might need a break, like being sure you have a plan to do that. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to sort of emphasize that regardless of whether your sort of platform or your course or program is asynchronous or synchronous, there'll likely be a few components of the other. Okay, so there'll be a blend of activities and maybe some optional Q&A sessions or office hours or ways to engage with your fellow students. Okay, the next slide, please. So let's talk about health. All right, so learning online can affect your health. So I'm sure most of us, since you're here, you're probably a student and you've been studying online over the past year and know that it can affect how you feel, okay? So there are some things that people experience. So with learning online, we have Zoom fatigue, eye strain. I had to get glasses over the past year because I was having, eye strain, muscle tension. We're sitting in one place for a long time. We're staring at our computers. Same thing, lack of exercise, not having our normal routine, not being able to walk from class to class. Loneliness, it can feel a little bit isolating to be just you and your computer, even if you have, classmates on screen. And then anxiety. That's something that's been very common. That's been reported in the news lately about students feeling this increased pressure, and also then the time pressure of having to be in the learning environment and have these time deadlines. Okay, so let's take a little poll. So of these issues, what issues have you experienced or expect to when studying online? So you can answer as many, check as many as apply to you. Okay, so I'm seeing some results here. I will share the results. Okay. So it looks like anxiety is one of the big issues that people have experienced or expect to, and then time pressure, sort of the tension. Okay. Okay, good. So let's talk about some ways to address some of these things. So if we can go to the next one. Okay, so for Zoom fatigue. Okay, so one thing you can do is to go off camera. Not all the time, but every now and then you can take a break, go off camera, stretch, and give yourself like a break from being online. But don't check out of class though. Eye strain, okay? So eye strain, you may be familiar with the 20-20-20 rule, okay? So the 20-20-20 is every 20 minutes, for 20 seconds, look at something 20 feet away. And that gives your eyes a little bit of change, helps them readjust. Okay, muscle tension, stretching breaks, making sure maybe you can set a timer and stand up every 15 minutes and stretch. Okay, lack of exercise. This is one, it's good to schedule it. And you can build it into your day, make it a regular routine. And if you like, combine it with something else that's enjoyable. So for example, for me, over the past year, I had a little community garden area, and I would go and walk to the garden and make sure that I got a little bit of exercise. Loneliness, okay, this is can be a big one. Okay, be sure to socialize and connect. So you can check in with your classmates and attend the optional events, find something that's interesting for you. Like, for example, at Middlebury last year, there were different groups. There were groups that would get together and do crafts. There were groups that were learning languages together. There were other groups that were interested in other topics. So you can find those groups even if you're studying online. And make sure you connect with the people around you as well. Okay, so and anxiety. So this is the big one, right? So the most important thing, I think, is to be mindful so that you're aware when you're starting to feel anxious. And mindfulness is really checking in with yourself and paying attention, and then realizing that you have the potential to calm yourself. Breathing is a really good way to do this, to just sit and be aware of what's around you and breathe. And it's as simple as that. Then if you feel like that you're not able to reset and refresh, find out what you can do. You can seek some support, whether it's family member or somebody from the school. There are lots and lots of wellness resources. As Maria Luisa mentioned, there are places online you can learn about mindfulness and happiness, and finding ways to increase your health. And then the time pressure. Okay, so the time pressure really is, again, about time management and prioritizing. So knowing what has to be done soon, what's the most important things, and that's something that is a skill that develops over time. And again, remember that your classmates and your instructor are going through this together, and you can work with them. You don't have to think that you're doing the studies alone. You can work with them and share ideas and maybe adjust things so that it works better. Okay, so the next one. So another thing that can affect your learning are different cultural aspects, especially if you plan to study with an institution or through a program that's based in a different culture. So when students study in the United States, there are some things that they consider about cultural differences, and these also translate to the virtual space. So here are some differences that exist between different educational sort of environments. So some places tend to have more teacher-centered classrooms. In the United States, we have more student-centered classrooms. So in teacher-centered, the teacher decides the activities, decides when things will happen, how things will happen. Student-centered, the students have more say. So they may have, certain activities, but they have more control over the content or choices. They have more choices. They are able to contribute to the learning in that way. Formal and casual. So some educational systems, very formal. The teacher and student roles are much more delineated. And in the United States, it can be very casual. So many students call their instructors by their first name, and that can be very uncomfortable for some students who are used to saying teacher or Mr. or Miss or Mrs. Okay, lecture versus interactive. So some systems are highly lecture-based, where the teacher gives the information to the students and the students just sort of absorb it. In the United States, learning environments are now very interactive, and the students are expected to be engaged and participating and sharing throughout the class. So, and this can be a little bit stressful for some students who aren't used to it, right? And the next one is independent work versus group work. So some places focus more on each student doing their own work, and their result is their result. In the United States now, again, there is a lot of focus on group work and collaboration, and the group actually has their work evaluated as a team. And this can also be challenging for students, especially culturally, sometimes working in group dynamics. How do you determine like who's responsible for what and those dynamics? So, and then the final one. So Maria Luisa also mentioned a con of MOOCs, the online courses, is plagiarism. So some places using information from another student or sharing information with another student can be seen as cooperation, but two students turning in the same work can be considered cheating in the United States. So it's important to think about the group work is not the same as doing the same work for the same assignment. So what happens often in the US is that you'll have a group project, and for part of it, you'll get evaluated as the group. And then part of it, you'll have your own evaluation or your own assessment. So you'll be expected to have something that is just your own work, and that you'll also often have peer reviews. So your classmates who work in the group with you will also evaluate you. So let's do a little poll. So thinking about these different areas, what aspects concern you the most about learning across cultures? And you'll notice too, while you're doing your poll, is that I did not include language in this poll because I wanted you to focus on these other cultural aspects. Okay. So it looks like we're up to 14 people here. Okay. So it looks like, I think I'll end the poll here. Okay, so it looks like we have independent group work is the biggest concern for you. And that's something, you can practice, right? You can practice working on things with your friends, get your friends together and say, okay, like, let's do a project together and just, make something or see how you would be able to collaborate online. And you can ask me questions for the Q&A. You can send them to Q&A Jackson Cruz. Okay, so one question for you to think about is of the things, those concerns, do you think that, thank you, that would learning online make these differences easier or harder to manage? Okay, so that's just a question for you to think about. Okay, and then let's go to the next one. Thanks. Okay, so one of the key things for whatever program you take is flexibility. Okay, so you may have like an institution where you have many different courses with different instructors, and you may use the same platform such as Canvas or Blackboard, but the courses look completely different. You have different styles, different formats, different requirements, different gradings, and timings. Okay, so you could have the same institution that has standardized formats, grading structures, and timings. So I've experienced both of those in my graduate programs. So for institutions that are just transitioning to online programs because of COVID, they may have a more diverse sort of representation of the instructors' courses, whereas courses or programs that were designed for online education will probably be more standardized. Okay, so and then finally, there's something emerging called hybrid learning, and that's a mix of in-person and virtual coursework or components. This might be a little bit difficult for you if you're an international student wanting to attend a higher ed institution in the US because of the attendance requirements and then visas and all of that. So I would be very careful if you're looking at hybrid programs at this time, and make sure you understand all the rules. You can talk to the advisor in the International Students and Scholar Office. You can talk to the other advisors and find out more. Okay, and then finally, I have a few questions for you to consider on the next slide when you're looking at programs or courses. Okay, so pulling in all of the things we've talked about, especially what is the mix of synchronous and asynchronous work? Does that work with your schedule? Okay, what is the mix of independent and collaborative group work? So some of you mentioned that's an area of concern. Okay, what would you be comfortable with and where do you want to stretch yourself? So, and you can ask about those when you're talking to your potential programs. Okay, so the advisors or instructors. Okay, and then was the program designed for online learners or was it an emergency adaptation? So this one is because you may find that if institutions have just transitioned to online learning, that they are still working through and developing and refining their programs and their courses. And that's a good thing. And but it can be difficult if you are trying to adapt, right, to a new system, new culture. So it's just something to be aware of, right? It doesn't mean that any program is better than another. And for example, Middlebury, so I said that they had transitioned to all online learning and they did a great job. And I had concerns because, as I mentioned, I wanted to be studying online, or excuse me, wanted to be studying in person. And I had to think, okay, well, do I want to still do this program if it's going to be virtual? And I decided that I did. And I am super glad that I did because it was really fantastic. And then the other thing is what tools and platforms will be used. So those are things that, do you have access? What are you familiar with? And just to be sure that, again, you have that comfort level going in. And then finally, the most important question is, what do I want to get from participating in this course or program? And then once you have that, then you can go back and say, okay, is this program going to meet what I need from it to meet? So if it's just for fun, like with a MOOC, you know, it's more a simple decision, and especially if it's free. If you're paying money for a program, you really want to make sure that it is going to help you reach your goals. Maria Luisa mentioned, like, you can get certificates, that you can get micro credentials for some programs. Like if you're interested in coding or things like that, you can get those technological qualifications online. But it's good to have that in mind, that, you know, be sure about what you want from the program, because it's an investment. Even though you may be studying from home, it's still really important. So thank you so much again. Share your questions with Q&A Jackson Cruz, and I'm happy to answer them later in the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Paula, for all of that valuable information. I know I learned and clarified some content myself, and it's really amazing to see the options, right, and the possibilities that are open to us when we think about online education. I mean, you were across the world and you were studying your education, your degrees based in the US, right? So that's really, really cool. So now we're going to move on to the Q&A part, to the panel part. We have some questions for you and Litzy, who joined us. She's joining us from Guatemala as well. And she will be joining us only through voice because of some connectivity issues. So like we usually say, we already thank you for your patience in case we face any technical difficulty. So why don't we start? Maybe Litzy, do you want to share with us a little bit about the challenges and benefits that you experienced in your online education? Tell us how that happened, because you were in a physical setting and then you had to switch, right? Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Maria Luisa. Thank you for the invitation. And yeah, I was on ground taking classes in Harding University in Searcy, Arkansas. And then because of the pandemic, everything changed and we started taking some classes online. I gotta say I was lucky because my online classes period wasn't as long as everybody else was because I started classes last year again. However, I did take some online classes, and for me, the most challenging part was the fact of how to keep up with the work, like how to increase my productivity and not to stay behind with my assignments and everything. Because sometimes like organization and administration of your time can be a little bit complicated when you're by your own. And so I would say what helped me the most with that was like having a calendar, for example. I wasn't used to do that because I'm not really organized, but having a calendar or even applications that can help you to increase your productivity or that kind of stuff helped me a lot just to organize myself and to know what I had to do and to like have work a little bit of all my assignments every single day so I didn't have a lot for at the end of the semester or that week, whatever. So yeah, keeping up with the coordination of my assignments was the hardest part of the online education. However,
I think we lost you.
at Harding,
We lost you
it
for
was
a
a little bit.
moment. We lost you for a moment there. So if you
Can you hear
repeat
me?
this last bit. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, all right. So I was at Harding, online classes were a little bit different. We didn't have to connect at a specific time to be in a class on Zoom for most professors. It was different for every single professor. But for the most of them, it was like we had a list of tasks we had to do in the week. And so we were the responsibles to finish those tasks, right? So that was the hard part for me, just not to leave everything for the last day. And it all depends of how the school or your program is going to coordinate your is going to assign you the task you have to do. But I would say being organized and having you and you being helped with I don't know, a calendar, or if you like paper calendars or apps, even apps. There are a lot of productivity apps that can help you to do that.
Thank you, Litzy. And so you shared a lot of the challenges and suggested some recommendations, but can you tell us a little bit about the benefits that you found in migrating to online education in your experience?
Sure. I would say that one of the most important benefits I found was that you were acquiring some self regulation, I would say, and that you were responsible for your own learning, at least in my case, right? Because we had to be responsible of what we had to read, and if you didn't read, then you couldn't do anything of the task. So you had to be responsible on reading the assignments. That way, I learned a lot, even I would say even more sometimes than just in a lecture, because I am usually a visual learner. And so with online education, I would say that helped me to retain a lot more information because I was reading and I was listening to some pre-recorded lectures from my professors. And so that helped me a lot, like retention and learning.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Litzy, for sharing your experience. And what about you, Paula? I know you shared a little bit about the different opportunities you had to do online learning, but what were some of the challenges and benefits for you in your experience?
I think like Litzy, I think organization is a big one. So I had a really big, I bought a whiteboard with a big calendar and I would just write like everything I had that week on it. And every week I would would change it and put the next week. So I could see, you know, in advance, like all the things and assignments that were coming up. So that was really important. And I think also just remembering to get outside and enjoy nature. One of the things that was helpful for me is when there was something that was pre-recorded that was mostly audio, I could go and take a walk and listen on my headphones, on my phone. The courses were all online on an app. We used Coursera, so that was really great because it was mobile, and I could also go sit in a park and, you know, like read assignments on my phone. So, you know, being able to realize that one of the benefits of having that online experience is that you can be mobile, right? You can be in different places, and you don't have to always be in front of your computer. It was really important. So
cool, perfect. And I think one of the common topics that you both mentioned was the time management portion. So Paula, you mentioned the whiteboard recommendation. What about you, Litzy? You mentioned some apps. Do you have any ideas, specific ones that helped you? I know, for example, I've started trying the Pomodoro technique, you know, like working for a certain amount of time and then taking a break. Sometimes I do 20 minutes work, 5 minutes break. Sometimes it's 25 work, sometimes it's 5 breaks, sometimes I just snooze it and do not take a break. But they say that these kinds of methods actually help us to be more productive. So Litzy, do you have any ideas, or also Paula, of apps or some techniques that have helped you be more productive in your online learning?
well, I think actually one of the things was scheduling time with my fellow students when we had group projects or things to work on, or even doing Pomodoro together. So, you know, it seems kind of funny to go on Zoom and then not be talking, but it actually is really helpful to feel like you have that community. It's like being in a study hall or in a library, and yeah, and just having that sort of social support is also really important.
For me, I tried a lot of applications, but I'm not really a applications girl. I cannot keep up with the work in my phone or my computer because I get distracted with the notifications and that kind of stuff. So I started using a calendar, like a paper calendar, and that was the best idea I ever had because I didn't have any distractions on my phone. However, I do have a to-do application that is from Windows. That one I really like because I work a lot with to-do lists, and that helps me like keep up with the work I need to do during the day. I can even schedule some things for other days. And so that application is really good. There are some others I think I tried. It all depends on what kind of person you are and what works better for you. But there are Be Focused that helps you to keep up with the work and try not to be distracted by your phone. And it gives you, like you said, some period of time where you can be working, because I think that's important. If you're going to be doing some online classes, you need to give yourself your breaks, like make your schedule and be loyal to it. However, like make sure to leave some breaks in between all the tasks you have to do. Make it even if it's a lecture or if it's a homework you have to do or study time you have to have. And so that application is really good for that. And then Trello, it's like a calendar too that helps you to keep everything organized. And if you are a visual person, as I am, that's going to help you a lot.
Cool, thank you. I know for me, one thing that helps me apart from to-do lists is blocking things out in my calendar, my Google Calendar, like the digital one. Blocking, you know, I'll take 2 hours for this item on this day because it's due in X date, right? And gives me enough room to foresee any changes, right? Maybe I can't get to it that day, but I can move it and still have enough time to get it done before the due date is too close. This is a question for Paula. Paula, do you know if the admission process for different programs is for online learning programs is different? If it is distance learning or if it's physical learning, do you know?
I can't speak to any specific institution, but my guess would be that the admission requirements are the same, regardless of whether you're learning online or not. Of course, you'd have to check with whatever program you're interested in.
Right, thank you. And I think adding to that, we have to realize that online learning is not necessarily a new thing because of the current situation we live in. It is something that has been in place for a long time, thanks to being connected through the internet. So there are well-established degrees that you can take that are based online and that may have a physical portion of it, but may not. So like we often say and repeat in Education USA, it's a matter of finding the best fit for you. So, and that means that they offer the degree that you want, that you can meet the requirements that they ask. And we have a lot of content on searching your options in our YouTube channel, but also remember to always reach out to your Education USA Advising Center wherever you're at, so that they can help you with all their tools and resources to navigate this process. All right. So another question for both of you. Let's start with you, Paula. Did you feel a connection with your professors or fellow classmates during online courses? What was your experience, Paula? And then we'll move on to Litzy.
Okay, so I can say for my asynchronous courses, it was more difficult because of not being able to see my fellow classmates. With the instructor, because often there's videos, you may feel like, oh, I know them. But with the fellow students, it's a little bit different. And with the synchronous courses, yeah, I think that in the beginning of each course, the instructors made a point to make sure everybody had sort of like a get to know you activity right at the beginning of course. So we all learned a little bit about each other to start, like whether it's sharing a picture of something or a little story or, and that really helped.
What about you, Litzy?
Well, as Paula said, it was a little bit more difficult, like to connect with new people when you're in online classes. However, there are some ways. Professors, as always, they try to, like in the beginning of the classes, like to connect all the students, right? And I would say that the connection with the professor, for me, it was a little bit better because I would communicate more times with him, like by email or whatever. Anytime I had a question or something, I would email them and they would be like really kind to me and everything. So I would say that there was a good communication channel over there. And with my classmates, we always had DQ questions where everybody will talk to each other. And so that would be a good way to know the experiences they had, because all the questions were like kind of personal, kind of professional-ish. And so you will get to know the classmates because everybody were capable of reading what they wrote. And also teamwork is really important to make some connections when you are on online classes, like communication with your team and that kind of stuff. It's harder because you can't see them, as Paula said, but it's not impossible. You can always keep track of what's going on with your classmates.
All right, thank you. And one last question. In your experiences, the resources you used, were they also online, or did you have physical resources like books and online books. Paula?
I like physical books, so I bought physical copies of most of my books, and I'd like to take notes by hand also. So yeah.
Okay, let's see. What about you? What you do?
For me, it was it depended on the professor, because there are some that moved everything online, and so we had all our books online. Most of my books were online. I do not like that as Paula, but there are some others, like 2 or 3 of my professors that did like physical books, and so those I had. But yeah, I rather physical books more than online ones.
Okay. Well, thank you both, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I hope you learned some information that is going to be useful for you and your journey for your U.S. higher education or for your personal growth in academic endeavors or personal endeavors. My name is Maria Luisa. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Litzy, and thank you to the regional working group for all the support backstage. Please remember that we have many sessions coming in July. Refer to our social media to find the links to register and stay connected. We're happy to be with you, and we're happy to share these sessions with you. So have a great afternoon, stay safe, and see you next time. Bye-bye.